Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Talking Disney Magic, a show all about ranking and reviewing the biggest films in Disney and Pixar's catalog and talking about the biggest news in the House of Mouse, including Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, and so much more. My name is Adam Bankhurst and I'm here alongside the wonderful Vanessa as always, and we are so excited this week to be ranking and reviewing Pixar's Elio, the brand new film I feel like we've been waiting for such a long time, and it's always awesome when a new Pixar movie or a new Disney movie comes out that's original content, that's new, it's exciting, you don't know what to expect. So I'm excited to dive into this one, Vanessa.
Me too. I was telling you before we started recording that I took Henry with me. And if you've listened to some of our previous Talking Disney Magic shows about our trip to Disney World, you'll know that Henry on a scale from like 0 to 10 is like a -5. Like any kind of scary bad guy,
Anything past
villain.
walking is a little too much.
Like we rode the ride, the floating ride in the Avatar world, and he was like, that was the best ride ever. So that gives you an idea of like it's a small world is like what rocks this kid's boat, right? Like he
Oh
just
my
gets so
gosh.
pumped. And so it was interesting to have him in this movie, and he was just like, I didn't think it was that like the bad guys were that bad, but he thought the bad guys were real bad.
Did you say you gave it a 0 out of 10 or something? Because he
No,
just
he
got
was
in.
just like, I was like, oh, do you like it? He goes, the bad guys were really bad and really scary. And I was like, really, buddy? He's like, yeah, it was a lot. I was like, okay. I was like, you didn't love the space because he's super into space. So I thought this movie
Yeah,
was
right.
rock. This kid sucks. And he's just like, the bad guys were really bad.
At least they
Okay.
were all nice at the end, so that was
That's what
good.
I said. I said they had redemption, they had redemptive qualities and they like made a comeback and they really cared. And he was just like, yeah, they were really bad.
Yeah. Can't get anything past Henry. Oh my gosh.
He was just like, too bad for me. His favorite show right now, I was telling you, it was Tots, the show where they like basically storks deliver babies.
Yep.
And I was like, why do you like this show, Henry? It seemed he's 5. I was like, well, it seems really, like, but just help me understand why do you like it? He's like, because it's all about love. I love the love and I love the like their fan. I was just like, okay, really, like this -5 is persisting. All right. Like, just no bad guys, all good guys. Everybody's just loving the love. He's
I
like,
think the
I
world
love
needs more
the
Henrys. That would be a wonderful thing. Oh my gosh. Well, to find out if Vanessa and I felt the same way about Henry, 0 out of 10, too much evil and too much anger, you won't have to wait too long. But I do want to remind everyone that Talking Disney Magic is a show that goes live every Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can check the show notes below to find a current ranking of all our films, our upcoming schedule, an invite to our Discord, and anything else you need to know in the world of Talking Disney Magic. And if you want to be a part of our show, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Elio. We'd love to hear your thoughts on, is there enough love in this world? Does there need to be more love? Was there what do you agree with Henry, or where do you stand on the Henry scale? That's really the important
A
questions.
really important thing. Just like we have the Adam scale for how long we can wait, or how many times we fall asleep in a movie. We have the Henry scale for how bad are the bad guys.
Yes, these are very important things. So please let us know where you fall on all of these scales. And then also, we want to encourage you to send in your emails because, we just did Toy Story 3 for its 15th anniversary, but Toy Story month isn't over yet because next week we're going to be wrapping it up with Toy Story 4. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that, on the franchise as a whole, what you're excited about for Toy Story 5, like all that stuff. But also, Vanessa, next week, and we kind of teased this a little bit last week too, but we have another interview. So we are interviewing Danielle Kelly, the Dapper Danielle, because she has a new book out.
I Heart Disney's Magic Kingdom,
Hey, there
an
it is right
unofficial
there.
fan guide. There we go. It's right here. My advanced copy, might I add,
Oh,
which I
fancy.
was really pleased about. I was like, oh, it's my first one. I feel good.
Yay. You did it, Vanessa. You did it.
I got
But yeah, this
it.
this is it's a really fun book. There's a lot of like trivia and quizzes and facts and things that like really even surprised me. And Vanessa and I know so much about Disney World and Magic Kingdom, but there's so much in here that we didn't even know. So we're excited to kind of talk to her about that, her experience of actually writing a book, which is awesome. We're gonna let her look at our rankings of all our films and get her input and stuff. So I think it's gonna be a really fun chat. So if you've been following the Dapper Danielle as long as I have, or other people, or you have questions about Magic Kingdom or Disney or anything, this would be a really good time to get it in because it's gonna be. I'm really excited for this interview.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super fun, and we're going to be doing it as a bonus episode along with our Toy Story 4 ranking and reviewing next week. So you're getting a lot of us these days. It feels like you just got a lot of us in your feed all the time.
I know, yeah. It's there's like so many things happening in the world of Disney, and we just love covering it. So you're gonna, it's the best. It's just the best. You know what? All that mumbo jumbo, all that housekeeping is over. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this show, Vanessa. Elio. So Elio is the 29th Pixar film. You know, it's about a kid named Elio who has always wanted to be abducted by aliens. It's like his dream to be taken away to the stars and all that kind of stuff. And it's not even officially out yet. It's out on the 20th, but you know, they start showing films earlier and stuff. So Vanessa and I have been able to see it, and we're going to be giving our full review. We're going to rank it. We're going to do the whole thing. And before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it and making of stuff, because I don't even know yet, Vanessa, what did you think of Elio?
It's really interesting. It made me really emotional. Like the beginning made me really emotional. Are we trying to go spoiler free at first and then
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess we can do a little spoiler
a little
free.
spoiler free and let everybody come back? So the beginning piece was emotional for me. Like just the setup and everything like that. And I felt really sorry and sad for Elio. And then throughout the movie, I found that I was really enjoying it. I felt like some things were a little bit abrupt or like towards the end, especially. Like I felt like the ending was kind of just like done, like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
didn't really get a lot of resolution to a lot of things. I mean, you got resolution, but like maybe there wasn't as much as there could have been.
right.
So I really enjoyed it. And also, like, it probably wasn't the best Pixar movie that's ever been. It was not like, top of the S. It just walked out feeling like blown away.
Yeah,
Do you feel the
definitely.
same way, or do you feel like it like really crushed it for you?
So yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of very much like Henry, where I love space. I love everything to do with the stars. I've always dreamed of going to the stars. Maybe not being abducted by aliens, but you know, still love the space and Star Wars and all this stuff. And if you're watching the video version, you'll see my Wally shirt right here.
I
And
know,
like,
I was gonna compliment you. We love Wally.
oh God,
Wally is
Wally.
just so great.
So, you know, I was hoping for another scale of Wally and just like that kind of level of things. And this movie's been getting a lot of good reviews and rankings and stuff like that, which I'm so happy to see because once again, I love supporting these like original ideas because I feel like in this age we get so many sequels and remakes and things. So when there's an original idea, I mean, I love supporting it and stuff like that. And I think I'm definitely more in line with you, sadly, where I wasn't blown away by this movie. I think like I just when I think of Wally, like compare from the instant Wally started, I was just like, what is going
Yeah.
on? Like what this world, I want to know everything about it and the emotion and the love and the music and the things. Like it just captured my like from start to credits. That is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Elio, I think, is a very good movie. Like I think there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good topics, a lot of tough topics, a lot of interesting ideas about being alone and what that means and like where do you belong and like are you maybe where you are is where you should be but you don't realize it till later. It's like there's a whole bunch of really big topics and I thought the communiverse was really great. I thought Glordon was incredible. I think he is
Yeah.
such a hilarious character and stuff. It's just like
Henry got fixated on the lack of eyes. He kept being
oh
like,
yeah.
does he have no eyes? He asked me that like 7 times. Where are his eyes? Why does he not have
Oh my
eyes?
gosh, I
He
know.
just could not get past that.
And I think that's like an interesting thing Pixar did too, where you know they talked about this too, where Glordon's design was influenced by like larval insects and microbiotic creatures such as the tardigrade, and so they were trying to find like a balance between like disturbing and adorable and all that stuff, and finding expression in a creature without eyes. So like that was a big thing, but I think that was kind of like the goal, where it was like you can find friendship and love and all these things anywhere. Like even if something
Belonging.
seems weird or doesn't seem like right, it could be what you've been searching for your whole life, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I thought the messages were really great. I thought that the way in which they tried to tackle the topics didn't feel super preachy.
Yeah,
And
right.
it felt really authentic
Definitely.
to the characters and to where they were at certain moments, and like some of the reveals felt really like emotional. Like I did get emotional in some of the parts, but and I did love Glordon.
Yeah.
He's
He's really
he's
great.
cute.
Yes,
I'm like
very.
I want a little plushie, even though it would be a little bit disturbing.
Right, exactly. Exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
so
Is it?
yeah, I think you're totally right. It just doesn't hit the same like high highs, but there's a lot of wonderful things about this. It
Yeah, there
doesn't,
really
it
is.
didn't tank, it
No,
wasn't
no, definitely
Snow
not.
White.
I don't think there was anything bad about this movie. It
Mm-mm.
just it didn't quite soar to the stars like I hope some of these films do, which I was like,
Yeah.
like I wish it did for me because I know it seems like it did for a lot of people and I love that and yeah, it's just sometimes things don't necessarily work as much for you, but like I don't really have much bad to say about this film. Like I mean we'll dive into this and see where we go because I think there's a lot of good stuff. I just think like the aliens and everything they were fantastical, but nothing was kind of like taking my breath away or like what am I seeing or different things like that. I think it was just a very good movie, and yeah, I thought it was a very well done thing that just didn't quite reach the levels, which you know what, and everything can't, I
Not
guess.
everything can, yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, it was a good one that I'm excited to talk about, and I'm curious to see like sometimes when we dive deeper, our thoughts change and shift a little bit. So I'm excited to see where that kind of goes. But yeah, it's interesting, Vanessa, where I feel like yeah, we're once again kind of right in the same page. Sometimes I want one movie to like be an S versus a D or something. I want to see like what maybe will ruin our friendship or what the battle does. Like it's got to be coming sooner or later because I feel like we've had some differences here and there, but I can't wait for that movie. That's gonna be scary.
Where I'm like, this movie just was. I feel like we parted ways quite a bit on like Fantasia. I feel like was
Yeah.
one of the big ones where, yeah. I think most of the time we're pretty aligned. I can't wait for the fight when something's gonna dethrone Lion King.
Oh
Like I feel
yeah.
like
I
that's
know
gonna be
Beauty and the
the like
Beast and Up and some of these.
knockdown
That'll definitely be
dragon.
interesting.
Coco,
Yep.
We
There's some
got
good
some big
stuff
ones
coming.
coming Sunday. We'll duke it out. But yeah,
Stay
the
tuned,
S versus
everyone.
the D would be a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I know that might never happen, but we'll
I don't
see.
know that we'll ever be that far apart. And I don't know the three caballeros. I feel sad they're all by themselves if they have each other. So like,
Exactly. It makes
do
it
we
feel
really need
okay.
another D? But then our scale feels like we're totally grade inflating.
I know, right? Some would say we're biased towards Disney stuff, but I don't know if I believe that. We're like I said, we're mean. We're like on Henry's scale, like a 9 or a 10. We're bad guys.
We're the bad guys, the villains of the story. I was like, when you
Yes.
watch it again, he's like, the bad guy was really just real bad.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? Luckily that fight is not happening today. We can remain best friends. So it's all
It's
wonderful. It's
all
great.
good.
But yeah, that's kind of our initial thoughts on Elio. And before we dive like deeper into like a plot by plot like recap and stuff, I did want to, always talk about I love going in behind the scenes and hearing the story of the films and different things like that. So this is kind of where the spoiler free talk ends. Like we're not going to I mean, I don't even think there were like crazy reveals in this movie anyway, like that you don't know about. So I mean, you're not really missing much, but if you want to go watch it and come back, we'd love it. We'll be waiting for you right here. And it's like we never left. So this film was first the idea of Adrian Molina, who is the co-director of Coco, alongside Lee Unkrich. It was another like personal story. Like we talked about Turning Red and Elemental and a lot of these other Pixar films in like the last 5, 6, 7 years. A lot of them are really personal stories that these directors bring to life, and it's kind of a wonderful thing to see them happen. So he basically grew up on a military base and didn't find his quote unquote people until he started studying animation at Cal Arts. So he kind of had an interesting kind of similar journey to Elio, where the army base and like growing up that way and losing his parents and losing his way and not finding a way. So that story is obviously relatable very much to him and to a lot of people around the world, not even just people in an army base, but it's that feeling of yeah, you don't find your people. Like it's I mean, you always see these movies and like high school movies where there's the cliques and you're trying to fit in, but sometimes you just don't fit in, and it's unfortunate. And you find out that kids can be pretty mean, and it gets a it's very sad. It's not easy growing up, Vanessa.
No, it's not. And I think too, we like to believe that, oh, like our kids, or you can always find someone that you can get along with. But a lot of times, especially if you feel like there's something unique or different about you, or you're living in a small community, then sometimes there really isn't an outlet in a way. And I think in this military base, and for military families, that can be really challenging because there's a lot of structure there. There's a lot of feelings people have around the moving, and that you're constantly like, you don't always get to have that connection.
Right.
And so I think I can see how people might feel disconnected, or feel like it's really hard to put in the effort when you don't know if that's going to be where you're going, like you're not going to be there for long. So like, why put in the effort? And I can see how that would be super challenging to like find people that you want to stay in touch with and that you want to be connected to, if you don't know that that's going to be your people, right? A lot of hard topics that it tackles here, and I felt so sad for Elio. Like
Oh,
when
yeah.
I was saying, things make you unique or different. Like Elio as a kid, his parents died. And I don't know that we fully can appreciate how isolating that can make someone feel, and how everybody, like when someone dies in the United States, and specifically, I feel like we don't have any cultural like way of handling like death, unless you're as part of like, if you're really big into like, you have a religious institution, or like you have something where there's like a structure around it and like support. Like people don't know what to say, or they don't know how to deal with it, and so they just don't ask because they don't want to make you unhappy, when in reality you're probably unhappy anyway. And like, asking, like, yeah, sure, that may make you remember, but it also may be helpful. And we also don't like being wrong, and so we typically would rather just not,
Yeah,
because
right.
it's
It's
easier than
easier,
like
yeah.
being
Do
told
not
like, oh,
engage. Do not engage.
yeah, easier than being told like, oh, that wasn't helpful, right? A lot of people don't take that well. When it's like your help isn't helping, they get really like upset about it. And
Yeah.
I just felt really sad for Elio to hear all these people talking about him, like, oh, that's the kid that his parents
Yeah.
died. Like, I'm like, oh God, growing up is hard enough without having that stigma attached, and like moving to a new place and living on base when that wasn't how you, maybe we don't know if that's how he grew up, but like that's not what he was expecting. And
Yeah.
then like all the dynamics are so hard, and my heart broke for this
Oh
kid.
yeah, I know. And
Oh,
it's interesting. So, I had 30 some incredible years with my dad before he passed away from cancer. And obviously I was able to have him during the early ages that Elio didn't have. But even still, that thought, like you talk about, like I had that thing too. Like so many people were like afraid to even bring him up to me. And I'm like, no, I want to remember him. Like I love hearing the stories, and like we talked about with Onward and stuff. Like I love hearing the stories of him, and the things I didn't know, and celebrating him, because yeah, sure, they're dead or whatever, blah blah blah, but they're not gone. They're always there. And like that, it's not, it's a beautiful thing. Yes, it's obviously sad, but yeah, like you said, there's keeping those feelings inside and not having a place to let them out makes it worse. It inflates it. It makes it even more dangerous and things in that sense. And I mean, luckily I had 30 years of experience to be able to deal with those things, but having to put that on a young kid and having to lose both parents and stuff, and living, like you said, in the military base and all this stuff, like I mean, talk about cards stacked against someone. It's just, it's such a sad thing to see.
well, and then, on top of that, you put in these like unique or different hobbies or interests, and you mix that in with this, oh, that's the kid that has dead parents.
Yeah.
Like that's just like a recipe for not fitting in,
Right.
which is already hard enough. And I just yeah, I think we people don't know what to say. And then I felt my heart went out to his aunt Olga, who was trying her best, but like this wasn't how she pictured her
Yeah.
life
She was
either,
supposed to be an
being a parent.
astronaut. That was the whole thing. Like
Yeah.
everyone kept saying, like, do it, do it, do it. And she's like, what do you want me to do? I can't.
Yeah, and then I can totally see how that becomes this blaming, like, oh, I'm the problem, right? Because it's really easy for us to tell these stories about, like, to ourselves about how other people think. And this is again, the people don't like to be wrong, or people don't like to ask or put themselves in vulnerable positions to express themselves, or to be like, hey, did you actually mean that in this way? right? And our brains automatically generate these stories based on our perceptions, our perspectives, our experiences. And so this kid who is isolated alone feels like his parents didn't want him because they died, right? And like feels like nobody likes him, nobody wants him. Hears some of the comments that his aunt is making, maybe out of anger or frustration, and makes up these stories about what they actually mean for their relationship and for where he fits in, and doesn't realize that maybe that's not the whole picture. It's not really the story. And we all say things we don't mean when we're angry. So it was just a recipe for disaster. And my heart broke
Yeah.
for
Is
this
it like
family.
when you put all that, stack it all together, it makes sense that a kid would want to say, you know what, why do I want to stay on this planet? Like, why would I want to stay on this planet? Like, it makes sense that he wants to be abducted by aliens and go to a new world because it's like this world I'm in, I lost my parents, I can't get along with my aunt, I have no friends, I have no this. It's like it really makes sense for Elio's like diving deeper into this. And I think like you mentioned before, with people always having those comments and talking behind his back and trying to be upfront and nice, but then you see the real picture behind it. It makes him dive deeper into that loneliness. Like it just kind of gets deeper and deeper. Like I think it reminded me a little bit of like Soul, like that, like the lost souls when they just get bigger and bigger when they lose their purpose and do those things. It's like a different kind of thing, but it's that place where you're kind of lost, and then if you just dive deeper and the hole gets bigger and bigger, and it could get very dangerous.
Yeah, the one of the parenting podcasts I've been listening to, it's Dr. Becky. She was saying like you want your kids to be explorers where they go out and they feel safe to try new things and they always know they can dock back with you.
Yeah.
You don't want kids to be nomads
Right.
where they don't
Right.
have a home, where they don't have a place that they can check back in, because that's where things go off the rails, because they don't have a checkpoint, they don't have a safe place they can go to really get the love and the recognition of whatever they're going through, and to be able to work through it in a healthy way. And it becomes, you're a nomad, you don't have that. And I just felt like he's this nomad all alone. It
Yeah.
was just really sad.
Definitely. Yeah. Very, very rough. And I kind of wanted to throw in a little bit of the backstory to hear from the creators themselves, because I always find that fascinating because, sometimes you hear the directors' names or you hear the things and it's like you don't really know the meaning behind it. So I was like throwing a little bit in there. So this had a kind of an interesting story where Molina was going to be the director of this film, but then there was some speed bumps along the way and he was taken off of Elio and was reassigned to Coco 2 alongside Lee Unkrich, because once again he was the co-director of the original one. They're doing Coco again, so they kind of put the team, they're getting the team back together as it were. So instead of it being Molina, even though he laid the foundation of this film, it ended up being Madeline Sherifian, who did the Burrow short, and Domi Shi of Turning Red fame, and they jumped aboard as the new directors. So they were kind of the ones who got it across the finish line. And so they spoke to IndieWire, and they had this to say. So Sherifian first said, "We were really trying to infuse that feeling of loneliness into Elio and his wanting to belong somewhere, his deep desire to connect, but not really knowing how. I think a lot of young people just want to make friends. They want to find their people. But they think if I'm in the perfect place where everyone thinks like me, acts like me, then I can belong. That will be the solution to all my problems." And then she added, "But really, that solution comes from within. It's about making that first step, reaching out to someone. It's more than that typical, I want to go into space and explore. It's much deeper." So I think that's kind of like where Elio like was lost, because he has this idea of this perfect place, but it's not necessarily that. It's more about broadening who you are and what you accept and what you want to let into your circle. And I thought that was an interesting push and pull in this, because we obviously see Elio's very closed off at the beginning from everyone, even like he has this fake ham radio club and he just wants the radio, but he doesn't want these people who have the same interest. Like they have this kind of similar thing of like wanting to reach out and talk to people and stuff, but he can't see that for what it is. And then once again, that's where Glordon and all these things kind of open his and see he gets to see exactly what is really happening, I guess.
All of these, he has a really limited perspective, right? We talk about that a lot. Like perspective is such a function of your experiences. And when you're young, your perspective is so limited because your experience set is so limited. And unfortunately for Elio, his experiences are so traumatic, but they're still really limited.
Hmm.
And so that then informs his entire perspective based on these really limited, extremely traumatic experiences, which is just not the best
Yeah, no.
combination
Not
because
at all.
as you mentioned, when your dad died, you had a lot of perspective because you'd had a lot of time and you have other experiences and you can slot these things in and you can figure out a path through and you had all this support. I just, gosh, all these things when they happen to such small kids, they just don't have the ability to navigate because they just don't have the perspective because they haven't lived long enough to
Yeah,
have experiences to shape
exactly.
that in a way that makes it healthy.
Yeah.
So,
And they can't even understand what they don't understand. That's the worst part.
yeah.
It's like they can think they're okay, but they're like really not, or they don't even realize what's happening. I mean, that's always the most, hurtful and things. And that's why like, when there's child abuse or when there's things involved, like they don't know where to place the blame or think it's wrong or know it's true. Like that's why it's so important to like, protect these kids because that's just they're so vulnerable. Like it's such a dangerous time. It's the most wonderful and amazing time where they take everything in, but it's also the most dangerous time where so many bad things can happen and shape their whole lives in an instant. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the fact that he had all these experiences and his perspective was shaped that like this wasn't for him, it just shows up in every relationship that he had and how he was behaving and I think the kids were so mean to him. And
Oh
I just
no.
and I feel for his aunt too. Like the whole situation was just so crummy. And so I think that it was such a beautiful setup to give us the opportunity to show him like these experiences broadened his perspective in such a beautiful way and led him to have a totally different take on everything that he thought he knew,
Yeah,
which is really what life is about, right? It's
right.
about taking in new things and changing your mind, right? And knowing that it's okay to change your mind because we learn new things and that's part of growing up and that's part of just growing in general is taking new things in, getting new experiences that broaden your perspective and give you a different way to look at things. And I thought that was really beautifully shown in how they kind of really dramatically broadened his experience set
Yeah.
in this, really dramatic way.
I mean, how beautiful is it that Elio's dream was to be abducted and he got abducted and his dream was to become an ambassador and to be a part of this communiverse. And at the end of the film, he just gave up his dream because he learned something else. I mean, like you said, like we change all the time and we learn new things. And I think it fits beautifully into what you just said, but it's just that's why I really thought that was a kind of a strong ending, even if it was, maybe a little anticipated or not too grand or anything. I think the meaning and message behind it is really, really special.
Yeah, it was a bit abrupt.
Yes.
But I do think that the meaning behind it was like the more that we're talking about it, the more layers you can like
Yeah.
peel back. And I think this is one of those movies, the more that you watch it, I feel like you're probably gonna see more things
Right.
that
For
like
sure.
lend into other pieces and kind of tie the story up even more beautifully
Yeah.
than on
Gotcha.
the first watch when you're focused on that lack of eyes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, on that awesome note, I think maybe it's time to dive into this film and kind of go beat by beat and see where we end at the end of it. What do you think?
Let's do it.
So Elio begins, and once again, this is kind of a combination between handwritten notes in the dark and a little bit of Wikipedia. So, so Vanessa, you can step in where you need to fix things, or please bear with me, audience out there. This is like we just saw this yesterday. We just want to get this out to you and do this stuff. So we're gonna make this work.
Yeah, Adam saw it yesterday, which would be Wednesday. I saw it today. And so he said that he graciously took the outline because he's like, I'm gonna have more time to put it together and to like piece several of the things together. And I said, all right, that works. But yes, I don't think that people understand how challenging it is to like not get an advanced screening or like a private screening
Yeah,
to like
right.
write whatever you want or like type all the things. Yeah.
Because my theater was like mostly full and like you don't want to interrupt people next to you, so you can't have your phone out and like I don't want to be writing too hard or doing these things. So it's like you got to be very very careful. So that means you don't get that great of notes. So I think we did all right. We made it work. So
I'm
well.
reading it and I'm like, yeah, you got it. Yeah.
So yeah, so Elio begins at an Air and Space Museum, and we're introduced to Elio and his aunt Olga, who is now his guardian after his parents passed away. And was it like on a were they both astronauts or on a space mission, or am I like do we?
I don't
I
know
was
that we
trying to
know
remember.
how they passed away. I know that we know that his aunt wants to be an astronaut.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know if his parents were astronauts too,
Yeah, because I'm
or
wondering how they like both died. Was it a car crash? Was it something else?
yeah,
But
I
and
don't
like
know that we totally got the
yeah,
details.
because Elliot was holding like those little Legos of like astronauts and space people and stuff. So I just, yeah, I didn't know if that was
Yeah.
like linked. And I was going through my notes and I'm like, I'm trying to remember exactly what that was. But anyway, so yeah, we also kind of learned that, yeah, like you said, Olga herself has dreams of being an astronaut. And like this, she kind of talks a bit to her coworkers or stuff. And she had to put them on hold to raise Elio because she was obviously the one in charge as an aunt. And kind of before we continue, it's actually interesting. So the original story was Olga was going to be Elio's mom, but they actually changed it kind of when they switched directors and stuff. And I'll throw in a couple more quotes where knowing that Elio was going to have to decide where he wanted to be, it felt like a relationship with a mother and a son was a bit too much, Sheriff Ian said. Maybe they have an argument and they storm off, but at the end of the day, you still kind of believe in your heart as an audience member that they're going to come back together. But an aunt and nephew relationship is a lot more tenuous. There's a chance they'd split off and lose that connection forever. And that tension for the audience watching these two characters who are missing connections, you're really rooting for them. We felt that added a lot of juice. And she said, and I feel like I identified more with Olga as an aunt who suddenly has to like be saddled with this huge responsibility and she's trying her best, but she wasn't prepared for any of this. She's just trying to navigate it day by day. It just felt really compelling and she's lost as much as Elio is. And I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think to have a mother-son where the son is like actively trying to leave feels like very aggressive.
Yes, definitely.
Like most of the time, it doesn't feel like that. They're right. That doesn't typically happen. I mean, there are bad moms
Oh
out
yeah,
there. There are
definitely.
bad parents out there, period, right? But it doesn't seem like we see a ton of that reflected in art unless it's like the real bad ones.
Yeah, right,
And so in a Disney movie, like having someone be real bad, like a real
yeah,
bad guy,
right,
doesn't feel like that would make the cut.
right. So yeah, so that was kind of an interesting change that I found out, and I thought that was a little cool perspective. But anyway, so Elio kind of walks off when Olga's speaking to her friends or coworkers, and he makes his way into this coming soon exhibit. Which what a cool exhibit this is going to be! Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I was
Yeah,
like,
I was like, I want to go. Can I go? This looks amazing.
I know this is kind of where his eyes were open to like a life beyond this planet, that there's more out there, that there's a thing. And then we also get to hear a little voice about the legendary Carl Sagan and the Voyager Golden Record, which I feel like I knew about before, but kind of forgot. But like this is an actual real thing. There were actually two identical phonograph records that were included aboard the two Voyager spacecraft that were launched in 1977. And they basically contain sound and data that hopefully intelligent life forms can reconstruct and play that will show the diversity of life and culture on Earth. Say we come in peace, all these kind of things. It's kind of like a time capsule in a sense, and it's like such a cool concept and beautiful thing that they infuse like this real thing into this like this fictitious movie. But I loved this, and I thought this was such a cool like setup for what was going to come.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, and like I thought it was really beautiful. And we did the planetarium at the Museum of Science in Boston recently, and like watching all the planets and the scenes of like space and stuff. Like it is amazing how far technology has
Oh yeah.
come and how cool some of these exhibits are. And I was just like, yeah, that looks so fun, and I could totally see how a kid that's feeling lost
Yes.
could latch onto this as like, oh, this is my ticket out of
There's
this
more. This is it. This
dumpster
is what I've been
fire. This is
looking
it.
for.
Yeah, this is what I wanted. I got some more. And actually, it was Henry looked at me when he gets abducted. He goes, "It's finally happening for him. He's getting more."
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh, that's good."
oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
So yeah, definitely I could see how this would be like easy to make the thing that you're focused on.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, so then we pick up years later where he's actively trying to be abducted and he's traveling all over town, trying different beaches and locations in hopes aliens will find him. And on one of these adventures, we find out that he's like trying pretending to be the leader of a ham radio club. And he like is in hopes someone is gonna bring him radio so he can like, I don't know, amplify a signal or do something like that. And so then this is when we meet Bryce and Caleb. And like I really love the character of Bryce in a sense because he's like a young kid who's such a good kid, but he's just gets kind of in the bad crowd a little bit, and like he's very hesitant about being mean and doing this stuff, and wants to be a good friend and a good kid. But once again, being a kid and following people is a very tough thing. So I really liked kind of his dynamic and what that was, because Elio just did not treat him very well. He's like, give me your ham radio and see you later. Bye. See you later.
Yeah, like they all have amnesia.
Yes, right. It was so silly, but oh my God.
Yeah, I could that kid, the Bryce character is, 80% of kids out there, right?
Yes.
Like just this, they want to fit in, they like something. He was so excited to talk to someone in Ohio. It
Yes.
made me
Oh,
think
yes,
about
I know. Oh my
you.
God. I was like, yes. Represent.
How far did you get? Ohio.
He was so excited. I loved it.
So excited. And so I think again to your point, Elio's missing these
Yeah.
bids for
What
connection,
a good
right? Like,
friends right there. Right
yeah,
there.
like they're a lot of times they talk about bids for connection, right? Like where people are trying really hard to like get your attention. And so you can either accept that and reach out and embrace it, or like you can decline. And when you decline these bids for connection, like it isolates you and the other person and makes it really challenging to come back from. And he's just not even seeing what's in front of him because he's so fixated on the fact that he thinks that he can never fit in.
Yes.
Like there's no path for him to fit in here. He
Right.
can't. And so he's so hyper fixated on that he can't see that right in front of him there's like a new cool friend that he could have.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's such a shame, because then of course Caleb comes in. He's a little more brash, a little more rough and
Aggressive,
tough
yeah.
and stuff. And then obviously they butt heads, get made fun of, all this stuff, big fight. And Elio just goes like feral, just like biting him and like going
Yeah,
crazy.
like loses his
Oh my
bleeding
God.
mind.
So silly. But yeah, so
The
that's
lights come on and he's literally got his leg in his mouth. He's, ah, ah, ah.
so funny. So yeah, so the police kind of end this big kerfuffle, as it were, and the police arrive, and then we kind of cut to Elio, who has an eye patch after the fight, and he's now at Olga's office, and she keeps trying to understand why he keeps acting like this. He keeps getting in trouble. I think this is where we learn he's skipping school. He's not doing the things that he's supposed to do, and it's just like, once again, poor Olga. I mean, God, like your life, talk about being derailed and stuff. And like you always obviously want to be there for your family and stuff. But man, what a tough situation she got herself in.
Well, and I think too, like she's trying like to navigate being a parent. She doesn't know how to do this, right? None of us do, but it's a little easier when you've had time to like adjust to this idea.
Right.
And I think that Elio's isolated. He doesn't really she keeps making these bids for connection and he keeps shutting her out. And that gets frustrating at a certain point. It's like, I can't keep being the person that's trying to get your attention and connect with you if you're not going to connect back. She also doesn't do the connection back either. Like,
Yeah.
and this comes back to like when your parents die or like when something big traumatic happens and nobody wants to talk about it. Elio has this secret language, LEOEs, right?
Yeah.
And we find out later that he's speaking this, and Olga's like, I'm not going to learn it. Like, stop talking in LEOEs. Like, I'm not going to learn it. He's doing it to keep his parents alive
Yeah.
because they used to talk. Like, he's like the only other people in the world that knew it were my parents, and so they talked it with me, and I want to use it to keep them alive. But he was never in a place to share that with Olga, right? We find out much later when he's in a much more vulnerable state, right? But it's just so interesting how like they both really, I think, want to connect. Maybe Elio not as much because maybe he feels like he can't.
Right.
But I can see how you would just feel like you're just like constantly passing each other, ships passing in the night, and you can't make those connections stick.
Very
For
much so, and that continues throughout the film. But for now, we kind of see that she's upset with all this what's happening, and just wants him to just, can you just not get in trouble for like 5 minutes? All I need is like 5 minutes, please. There's some emergency or like big thing happening, big emergency meeting that's happening, because there is a employee who found a proof of alien life. It's basically sounds like the golden record. They're replaying it back and stuff. And this was actually, we forgot to mention that Elio kind of heard this on that ham radio
Mhm.
like connection thing he made, and that was one of the big things that he heard. So this was seems to be a message that's being sent back. and he basically wants to send a message back to these people that he thinks is happening, but Olga's just can't even like deal with this. Like, no, it's this is not what we are. We're like we're trying to keep like aircraft safe from like space debris or something. That's like their job basically in there. So we're not trying to find aliens. This isn't like what we're first contact, whatever it is. So basically it just sends him home. And it's like a whole big thing. He's upset, he all that kind of stuff. But meanwhile, while this is happening, Elio can't sit still. He goes in to hear what's happening because he hears about aliens and all this stuff. He's hiding in the
Hide in the
trash
trash
bin.
can.
Yes, which is great. So when they all leave, they don't turn everything off. So Elio's like, "This is my chance. This is my chance." So he sends out a message, his big moment, recording this message of all this stuff. And what happens? Military base loses power, and Olga almost loses her job.
Yep, as the major on the base. I love the ending. He says, "Okay, bye. I love you." Like, that's Henry says all the time, "Bye, I love you."
It's the
Like,
best.
and then red buttons, everybody. That's what he said with the FaceTime. He goes, "Okay, bye, I love you." So it's literally like that exact line. I was like, "Wow, they're capturing the essence of kids these days, real good." Because
Oh my
that's
gosh.
like the statement in our house.
Yep. So good. So Olga's clearly upset and tells Elio that basically she is going to send him away to like this camp for a few weeks that she went to when she was younger in order to get him back on track. And I think it's also, in an effort to like just,
Military camp,
yeah,
yeah.
it's basically just like you need to find yourself, you need to find purpose, you need to find a way. And this is what Olga knows because clearly she grew up or I don't know if she grew up on army bases or with a military background, but clearly she grew up in this kind of thing. So that this is what she knows. So this is kind of the choice she makes, and it tracks, I think.
When you don't know what to do, you lean on what you would do for yourself or what was done for you or how people parented you.
Yeah,
Um, and that's just typically like it's unintentional. It's just, I think, instinct to do that as a way of coping. And she feels like she has no other options. And so this is what worked for me. And so I'm gonna lean into it and hope that it works.
it's only a few
Um,
weeks. It is what it is. We'll make it
well,
happen.
and what he overhears is that it's she says to his face that it's only for a few weeks, and behind his back, she's trying to enroll him in the
Oh yeah,
fall to
right. Oh
so
yeah,
that then I think reinforces like nobody even loves me. Like
yeah,
she can't even wait to get away from me. Like she's
right.
just gonna leave me too. And I think that's just devastating.
And so we finally get to this camp, and we learn that Caleb and Bryce are also there, and we get this big whole thing where Bryce just needs to get his revenge because they got in big trouble, and they put on these alien masks and try to scare Elio. And once again, or actually Bryce is a little more hesitant. Caleb is the one, yeah, that's a little more in
Aggressively
charge. Yeah,
pushing this
in charge of his,
agenda.
yeah. And there's a
Turd.
yes, exactly. So there's a bunch of other kids that kind of get up, and Elio kind of hears this happening and kind of runs, and they kind of have this big chase through the woods and this whole big kind of scary scene where they're getting chased and Elio's in the woods. It's like, what's going to happen here? And then as soon as they get to kind of this beach area, Elio kind of sees something happening in the distance, but this is when the boys catch up to him. And there's a whole thing that happens, and Elio fights back a little bit, and he's about to get punched. Caleb's about to do like the finishing blow right to his face, but then the aliens freeze everyone in a pretty cool scene and gives Elio his dream by abducting him, and he is just could not be happier. It was like the celebration of all celebrations.
Yeah, he just cannot say enough positive things about the fact that this is happening to him. And he's willing to pretend to be the leader of Earth,
Oh yeah.
to make that happen.
Yep, exactly. So it kind of took a little longer than I was expecting, but like, because we haven't even met any aliens yet, but we're finally getting to there was this really beautiful scene of this like spaceship opening up and him going to this like wormhole type thing, and he's just like flying through this through time and space, whatever it is, and he's so happy. And then this is where we meet ooh whatever, whatever her name is, but I think that's how you pronounce it. Who is a liquid supercomputer, which is just the coolest thing ever. And he's welcome to the Communiverse, a place where aliens of all shapes and sizes come together, share knowledge, work together. It's like this big conglomeration, big thing, and where they have a bunch of
Federation
ambassadors.
almost,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Like a federation. And he meets a few of like the ambassadors from other planets. And yeah, this is kind of where he's seen as kind of the candidate for Earth and is the leader and all this stuff. And like I think he said he was the one who sent out the golden record, or they thought he was, or something. But yeah, that's kind of our first view into this wider world of Elio.
They definitely make a lot of assumptions, and he's not quick to take them back.
Right, right. Definitely. And yeah, this like did I mean, were you kind of like I said, this was a very cool and beautiful scene, but once again, nothing like mind blowing here. But like I thought the aliens were fun and different variations and stuff like that. But it was like a fun introduction, I thought.
Yeah, I liked how they had these ambassadors that came from all these different types of aliens and walks of life, and were coming together to share knowledge. And I thought it was really funny. They had, I can't remember what the thing was called, but it was like the book of everything or something
Oh
like that.
yeah,
It
yeah.
literally had every single possible thing
That was pretty
that you
cool.
could know, and it wanted to tell the meaning of the universe. It's like, can I just tell you about the meaning of the universe? Like, it was like so excited, and everybody would be like, no, can we know about this? And it would just like, it's fine.
Uh,
Like, I can tell you the meaning of the universe, but like, whatever, you want to know about this other stupid thing about how to negotiate. Fine.
Oh my God, it was so great. So we once again, after we get kind of introduced, everything's kind of interrupted because Elio has to join an emergency meeting because I guess there's the arrival of the warlord, Lord Grygon, who was also kind of a candidate to be an ambassador to join the Communiverse or things. And Grygon is an angry worm monster thing. I don't know if we ever get the name of their whatever species they are, but
I can't
he
remember.
yeah, but he gets all angry and starts threatening to take over the Communiverse and all this stuff. But
We don't
Elio,
even know that it's a worm, right? It's like
oh
this
yeah, right,
like
yeah, right,
like suit. It feels like a Zerg from
yes,
Lightyear.
right,
Like that's what it feels like. And so you're like, oh, that's just like what these aliens look like.
yeah,
And we
right,
find out they're like worms that get forced into these suits that they can never leave them. That they become these war machines that have
right.
these like cool attachments. It kind of felt like a KitchenAid mixer, you know, all
Definitely,
the different
100%.
attachments.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, they're like Swiss Army knife, like
Yes.
monsters. So yeah, Elio kind of volunteers to lead the negotiations, if I remember correctly, and
Yeah,
hopes
they
this
they
will
have to
kind of
negotiate because he wants to join, and they're
right.
like, "You are a warlord, sir, and you don't belong here." And he's like, "Well, I will take it by force then. If you won't admit me, fine."
Played wonderfully by the great Brad Garrett, which I thought was always great. Always like to see him in things. And then, Elio kind of volunteers to take lead in the negotiations in hopes this will really get him inducted as an ambassador and really let him be a part of the Communiverse.
Yeah,
And
they
then,
were about to throw him out. So
oh,
in
right.
with Lord Grygon, they were all going to just they said they were going to go into hiding, into hyperspace, and go into hiding for the next many hundred years, and maybe they
Yes,
could
that's right.
come back in a few hundred years and he could be a candidate then. And they were just going to send him back to Earth, and he was just absolutely not. You can't make me. I will negotiate and find a way to be the ambassador that will make you the ambassador on the spot if you make him go away. And he was like, "Excellent, will do."
Ain't
Do
no
I know
thing.
anything about anything?
Nope.
No.
Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Fake it till you make it, right? That's how you got to do it.
Don't let the
So
facts get in the way of a good story.
yes, exactly. It fits so well. So I think this is, and then after this, kind of when this all happens, we get ooh makes a clone of Elio, and this is when the Elio clone gets sent home, and
Because the
Olga.
Earth is still frozen.
Oh right, yes,
Earth
right,
is like frozen in time as all of this is going
yeah. So
down.
like no time has passed, but then the clone Elio comes back, who's like very much like Elio, but then not, and then
Well,
also just
Elio tells him to just be normal. He's like,
yes,
should
right.
I be like depressed and like anxious and alone? And he's like, no, just be normal. And he's like, all right.
But yeah, the clones are pretty cool. Like I like how they kind of play them and how there's this goo that comes to life and stuff. And once Olga kind of meets Elio, she's like, "Wow, this camp really worked. What's happening? You're like so normal." It's like maybe too normal. It's like what's going on? But at first, Olga's like, "Oh my God, the dream come true." And I think there are also scenes where like sometimes Elio can see this happening, and then Olga like likes this version of Elio more. There's like a little bit of that, and it's just a whole big thing that kind of builds upon this.
Yeah, I think this was when they were like later on when they
Yeah.
were putting Glorian's clone
Oh,
together.
right. That's right. Yeah.
He like says, "Look, I can see my clone and see how well he's doing because he fooled even me." And like he sees again a very limited experience of what it's looking like, a very like one like or two like stills, and it
Right.
makes all of these assumptions,
Yes.
and it's like that's not the story that's
Yeah.
actually happening. You're making all these assumptions. You made up this entire story about what this actually was, and it's not that.
The whole
You
time Olga's like, no, this is not right. Something's,
know?
she has this whole like cork board of like, this is not right. What's happening here?
Exactly. Trying to figure out what abducting by what clones look like. She's got this
Yes.
whole thing going on.
Oh my God. And I know it's later, but I love like the reveal of like pulling up the eye patch and there's just no like skin. That was so great. That was funny.
There's no eye.
But yes, that's a little later, so we'll come back a little bit and we find out that the real Elio doesn't do so well in negotiations and is kind of put in jail.
He did well at first,
Yeah, right.
and
And
then
then he
he
kind of
like
says something
totally
that makes
tanked
him
on his
angry.
face
Yes,
about
right.
kids. Oh yeah, I just send my kid away when they get to be too mad.
Yeah. It's like you had me in the first half, but then oh, I feel like
Lost me.
I feel like that's such like an international traveling thing where like you think you're doing well and then you do one thing that you would never know, but then it just ruins everything and then you're like a whole relationship could be ruined because you like broke some custom that you had like how would you ever know this? And it's like, whoops, sorry.
I think this is just showing he's pretending to be someone that he's
Yes.
not. And because he's pretending to be someone that he's not, and he's not being his authentic self, and he's making all these assumptions about what Olga's doing to him, he then can't connect, right? Like this is just another one of those, like he made these bids for connection, they were landing, and then he makes all these assumptions, and like he just loses that connection, and it just is not, it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So things go wrong. He kind of gets like imprisoned with all this stuff. But this is finally, we're finally here. We finally meet Groigan's son, Glordon, who is just such a wonderful character. I just loved him so much from like the first thing, just his little speech about like I've been a bargaining chip, I've been like a nuisance, I've been like a whatever, like I forget the exact speech, but he just says all these bad things that he's been, but he says it in such like a happy, joyful way. It's like, oh my God, he's so funny.
When he was so they when they're introduced, it's because Gordon like wraps Elio in this like
Oh yeah, like the
spinning material, like a web, and Elio is convinced again because he thinks everybody's out to get him, that Gordon's trying to eat him, which of course I think I would be too. It's a
of
web
course.
and it's
Pretty
spiders and
terrifying.
perspective and all that stuff. But what I loved was he was like, "No, I was swaddling you because you seemed upset." And like, I love to be swaddled. My mom does it for me all the time, and it's how I feel happy. I
Which
was
comes
like,
back
"Oh,
later, which is beautiful, but
I
it's
was like,
like
oh, hold on. Like, you're so sweet that, like, you were trying really hard to be kind and didn't realize it was, well, that's terrifying.
very
Story
terrifying.
of Gordon's life, though. Let's
Yes,
be
right,
clear.
exactly. He was definitely born into the wrong species for sure.
110%.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's so we have this whole kind of fun scene of them meeting and trying to like escape and go through things and like he's like Gordon's like maybe a little excited to be a bargaining chip. It's like a fun adventure. It's like a whole thing. And like, we kind of learn that Grigan learned that this learns that this is happening and agrees to leave the communiverse alone if they give him his son back.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting that like his son didn't think that this was gonna work, right? He's
Right.
like, I don't think that he's gonna want me back, right? Like, and then like he was like, oh, it worked. That was really
Assumptions,
an
assumptions.
interesting thing.
Yeah, which we find out a lot about them that he does really care
Mhm.
about his son and what he wants and all this stuff, which is always great. But
Mhm.
so yeah, once again, this is we kind of jump more into this, and Elio and Glordon find out they really aren't too different, and they both don't feel like they belong in their respective homes. Elio obviously feels that he's not can't make friends, that people don't like him, that he's kind of out of place. Glordon's a little more intense, where like he has to be like this like warlord, crazy killing machine, and he just wants to be like a happy little guy. But it's just so yeah, different cases, but similar outcomes, I guess.
Well, and what was heartbreaking to me was the line from Elio when they were sitting there and he's like, all this time I thought it was like Earth, but like, what if it's
Oh
me?
yeah,
What if I'm
right.
the problem? What if I can't actually fit in? Or like nobody likes me? And I thought that just this budding relationship between the two of them were like, well, I like you, like we can be friends. I was like,
Yeah. This is like his first real like friendship. I mean, it's such a
Mhm.
from this eyeless, crazy worm creature, but friends can come from anywhere. It's the beauty of friendship.
And that was one of the lines later on where they're driving with Olga and the clone, and they're like, "You made a friend!"
Oh
Like they
yeah,
were
right.
like so happy about it. It's just so cute. But yeah, like I mean, I would be friends with him. He's real cute. I hope they make little dolls.
Oh, I know they
I
better.
don't know if they will because it's a little bit creepy looking, but like, I really hope they do because then I could just have a little Gordon. It's
I know that
cute.
would be so wonderful. Looks like there's a few like Glordon poles at Walmart. There might be like a new stuffed animal or different
Oh,
things. There might be a few things. Might be some Glordon love out there.
the lovies for
Yeah,
Glordon.
there you go. But yeah, so they're trying to, come up with this plan and how they figure stuff out. And Elio kind of remembers the whole clone goo thing and comes up with a plan to let Glordon live his own life and how to also keep the communiverse safe. And we get this fun scene of, Glordon clone happening, and then there's two Glordons, and that's even better.
And they're so cute. I can't even tell you apart. It's so great.
Oh my gosh. And at first he like looks kind of creepy and scary. You think it might not work, but then he's just, yeah, he's just great Glordon. He's wonderful. So,
Um,
oh yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that I loved how they had this like hope that they could be together and like have this friendship and like live this dream. I think we all have this dreams like when we're kids, like with our best friends, like maybe we could just go off and do our own thing and like live together and be kids together and not have to answer to any adults or parents or whatever. And this was their version of that. And obviously it didn't work, but
Yeah,
we all have those dreams.
we do. It's very true. And the dream seemed like it was alive for a little bit because at first Grigon is like, "Oh yes, it's happening," and you even get to see Glordon's like shell that he's gonna go in and all the crazy weaponry and things happening,
The
and then
songs, the singing
oh
was
yes,
wild.
yes,
It's so
right. Oh
excellent.
my God, seriously. And we get to kind of see him go into the shell, accept everything, and it just seems like maybe a little too easy, whatever's happening, but it's all good. But then they find the plan kind of comes apart. Discover once again this is another clone. You can't fool Lord Grigon. And this is kind of when we see the real Glordon kind of gets in an escape shuttle. He's trying to hide, but he finds his way to Earth, and this is also the same time where Questus, I think one of her name,
Mhm.
one of the aliens is trying to like because Ellie was like, no, like Glordon was here, I promise, this is where he was. So she tries to read his mind and discovers that he's been lying the whole time. He's not the leader of Earth, and he kind of
He's
gets
just a
kicked.
child.
Yep, he's just a child, and he kind of gets the boot as well.
Yeah, it was interesting that once she realized he was just a child, she like protected him. Like she like was like
Oh yeah,
she used her body to like send him
yeah,
back to Earth,
that was
right?
nice.
And make sure that but it was really like, oh, there's no way to like they have no communication methods to like stay in touch or like to get like it's like done, like
Right.
sealed off.
This is kind of where the whole movie kind of shifts back to Earth. Elio's back on the beach and reunites with his aunt and the clone, even though he kind of tricked like the aunt thinks it's the clone, but it's actually him. And this is after once again the aunt figured out this wasn't the clone, like this was a clone, this wasn't actually Elio, and this whole thing. And it's always funny, like the way the clone moves and like different things like that. There's just a lot of fun little gags in these little interactions.
Oh yeah, like one of the things where the clone cut the top of the finger off and then
Oh
he
yeah,
like stood up and like shoved it back on
right.
like with the hedge trimmers or
Oh
whatever.
my gosh, that was good.
Um, I thought it was really um and I thought it was really a nice touch that Elio still thinks that his aunt doesn't know that it's not him
Yeah,
and still thinks that he's not enough, he's not good enough, and in reality the aunt knows, right?
yeah.
And like they were in the middle of putting together these ham radios to send the signal to bring him home. And
Right.
like, so this just was like, oh, like
She's been working
maybe,
so hard behind the scenes to get back, and
yeah,
she really
maybe
does
we can
care.
be connected. She does care and
Yeah,
she wanted me back. She missed me. She
yeah.
knew it wasn't
It
me. Like I think that that was really powerful.
really reminded me of the scene in Finding Nemo when like I think Nigel, like the pelican or something, is like
Yes.
talking about like Marlin's been like sailing the seven seas to get back to you, and it's like, not my dad. And then he's talks about who he is and what he's done, and he's like, what? Really, really? Like, yeah, like it's amazing. Like you sometimes take for granted or don't realize or can't see the forest for the trees, as it were. But once again, assumptions and things like there's so much more happening like under the water, as it were.
Yeah, I just watched Finding Nemo with the kids recently, and I remember that scene.
Oh,
We were the sharks and everything. I was
oh,
like, wow, Henry's really like the bad guys, and that didn't scare. Well, he was upset about the sharks. He was
uh,
upset. He's like, why is Bruce being so mean? And I was like,
I know he kind of had like the little like the trickery where he's a good shark, but then uh-oh,
blood in the
disaster happened.
water.
Yes.
Anyway,
Fish
back
are
to
friends,
Elio.
not food. We're not there yet, okay? Hold back, Talking Disney Magic. Can't wait for that one. Oh my God. But yeah, so yeah, this is kind of where we get that. Then they kind of make their way back to the army base and
Is the crash landing.
yes, right. Crash landing, whole thing, trying to get Glordon. That's like a whole big thing, and we get this big sacrifice from the Elio clone. Gives him the big thumbs up. It's like a whole
The
big great.
melting and
Yes,
the
he's melting.
creepy zombie walking.
Yes, it was a really a kind of a good that was a really cool scene, and once again showing it's like I don't know it's kind of it's Elio, but it's also Elio, but it's also someone stepping up for Elio in a sense, even though it's himself, which is kind of like a meta like thing of I
Yeah.
don't know if you can kind of think of it that way. There's a lot of layers to that in itself. It's like standing up for what's right and trying to distract them and do it. It's once again, it's showing Elio that there's like people fighting for him, that there is good to happen on these places and stuff. And I thought that was kind of cool. And so Elio and Olga find Glordon, who's really almost a goner, and they kind of
He's
find
too cold.
yes,
He's a
right.
lava monster.
Yeah, right.
And
And Earth is
he
way too cold.
Earth is way too cold, and they have these like shields that they wear that can adjust their temperature, and it got broken into this like frozen tundra
Right.
temperature, and so he's just like freezing, literally freezing to death inside this shuttle.
Oh, poor
Poor
Glordon.
Lord.
So he they get him back to the communiverse once again. Nicely, it was like with the help of Bryce and the employee from earlier. I forget his name.
Melmac,
Melmac, I
I
think it
think.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they kind of Glordon back to his dad, who it's like this big, like wonderful scene where he kind of leaves the war machine and swaddles him back to health, and is like this whole big, beautiful scene where he like kind of gives up and shows that like, yeah, he does care about what Glordon wants and what he is and stuff. And it was a nice little moment showing. And once again, it was like once again, I think we kind of talked about this before. We really get to see that these are these like worms and these big machines, but there's more inside of them, and that's not necessarily who they are, but what they're trying to be, whatever you want to say. But it's a cool thing to see that happen, and a dad stepping up for his boy.
Really beyond that too, on their journey back through the asteroid belt or whatever, all these people reaching out to help right through the
Oh
ham
yeah,
radio network,
right.
and they're all like all the different people in all the different and they're and Olga's doing the the math to avoid all the different things, and I just thought it was really special to see how they could work together, and like that they both when like that Olga could trust Elio, and Elio could trust Olga to like save his friend, right? And I just thought that that was really a beautiful like way that they could connect.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So that's all. So yeah, that's a really good, fun scene. Getting everybody back together. Gordon's swaddled. He's safe. Everything's happy. Everybody's at peace. The Grygon agrees to leave. Everything is great. And then Elio is finally given his dream of becoming an ambassador, being able to stay. Like, this is what he gets, but he declines. He wants to go back to his real home after he kind of realizes how special it is. And once again, it's like a full circle moment seeing like what he had was kind of what he's been looking for this whole time. But now his whole like worldview and mindset have changed and have been expanded upon by this experience, which it's like kind of in a sense like I kind of link it a little bit. It's not quite a one to one, but why I so encourage people to like study abroad or to go like international or to like to do these things, because you get so used to kind of your world and your city that you grow up in and different things like that. But it's amazing how much you grow when you like go somewhere new and like go to a new place and experience things you didn't even know about. It like literally changes you for the better as a person if you take it in the right way. It's just such an incredible thing. And that's what these adventures and these journeys and these stories do for us. And once again, Elio never really had that because he was just so confined in this. He was stuck in his tragedy and his in his life, and being as a kid, like you don't have that much freedom to go anywhere, and he was just moved from army base and stuff, and this was his first big adventure, and like it changed him and allowed him to realize that there is beauty in his home, and maybe he doesn't need to escape to the stars to find his place and his meaning.
I do think I thought that was a beautiful way of wrapping it up, but I do feel like it felt abrupt, and it also was like he seemed like he was connected, like it almost felt like they should have let him be an ambassador, like to Earth, or like have
Yeah,
some way of like contacting them, or like doing, because it just felt like, okay, bye.
yeah,
Like,
right. Yeah,
he had these connections, and yeah, like I realized my home is beautiful, but like Olga even asked, like, are you sure? Because it seemed like he had found this community and found
yeah,
people that,
right.
loved him and cared about him, and, the okay, bye, I love you, like all these things where it was like, Olga kind of had this realization, like, you did find your community. And so it kind of felt like, yeah, he went and found this community, and then he's gonna give it, like, throw it away. Like, I can see it, like, that Earth is special, and you want that too, and you want that relationship, and you want to do these things, but I don't know, it was like, it feels like you worked really hard and now you're just giving it
Yeah,
all up.
right. And I think it kind of made me feel a little better, like in the post credits when we see like Elio and Bryce, or once again they're friends now, which was like a nice thing to see. And
Over the ham radios.
yes, right. And then being able to still talk to Glordon and doing that whole thing. So like there is still that connection. But I agree. Yeah, it was definitely an abrupt thing, and there was a lot of things in there. But I thought some of the moments and like the meaning behind it. Once again, it's like I feel like sometimes we talk about these movies in a way like we're talking about Elio, and I feel like I love it a lot more than I did when I came into this show, because when we talk about them and we get what they were like really going for, it's like it's a really incredible. It's great, but then maybe in the moment it just didn't quite sit as well, because it just, I mean, they happen so fast. They're so it's hard to do all this stuff in 2 hours and make this stuff happen.
Yeah, well, and I think we care a lot about endings.
Yeah,
And while it felt like authentically like there was enough there that that decision made sense, and like that was where he ended up, it did feel just like, okay, that's what we're doing, and we're
yeah,
moving on. And there wasn't like a whole lot of time to digest. And
for
literally
sure.
the movie ends with them like 30 like 30 seconds later on the beach, like holding hands as they fly away, and there's this beautiful, like, everybody sees that there's extraterrestrial
Yeah,
life,
that was a big thing. It was like, whoa.
and that's it, like, that's it,
Yeah,
bye, like,
yeah,
and I
it
was
is
like,
very abrupt.
okay,
Yeah.
bye. Bye, I love you.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think they were trying to maybe have that kind of not ambiguous. I don't know if that's the right word, but just like let your mind fill in everything else that happened. But yeah, I don't necessarily think it worked quite as well as it probably could have. But
No, I
talking
think,
about it, it's like the idea is really good, but yeah, maybe the execution was maybe a little lacking.
yeah, no, I think that it was, Henry's like, that's it, and I was like, bye. Okay,
Yeah,
bye, I love you.
right. Oh, yeah,
So,
that is the tale of Elio, though. That's as abrupt as it is. That's as abrupt. We're ending it right now. It's over. Bye, everyone. Have a great night. See you later.
yeah, literally, it is that abrupt. We are not making that up. It's literally like 2 minutes.
Yeah. And then, yeah, like I said, we do get kind of that fun little post-credit scene, which was a nice thing to see that Elio and Glordon are still there, and Elio's kind of made friends with Bryce a little bit more, which is great. And then, did you stay all the way to the end and see the Hoppers tease?
I did not see the hopper seats. Henry was like, all right, bye. And I was
So
like, I
that,
think there's another one, but
yeah, so
I'm
at
not gonna
first
make
I
it.
was like, I have no idea what's happening. I was like, what is going on? It's just literally this lizard was just pressing a lizard emoji on the phone, and like a Siri like voice kept saying lizard, 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 lizard. And like his eyes kept like getting weirder and more like uneven and over it. And then it just kind of ended. And it was like Hoppers is coming in 2026. And I was like, okay. I don't know if they were supposed to say like this is going to be like, I know Hoppers is about Mabel turning into like a robot beaver. Maybe this is a robot lizard or something. Another character. It was like a funny tease, but I like hadn't really seen that before. It was kind of interesting, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Henry would have lost his little mind. He was ready to rock.
Yeah, it was definitely not necessarily worth staying for. But I'm a little mad at because I thought we were gonna get some bloopers at the end. I think we
I
were
know, I
talking
was
about that.
waiting
Yeah,
for
I
him.
know, me too. I was like, oh man, that would have been fun. So I don't know where that rumor started or report or what happened, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
bummer.
So maybe for what's the next Pixar? Hoppers will be the next one. Yeah, so maybe with that we'll get something. But yeah, that's
No,
Elio.
Zootopia. No, that's
That's
Disney,
Disney.
right?
Yeah, that's just plain old Disney. By the way, can we talk for just 1 second about the Zootopia 2 trailer and how much I love it because it tells you nothing, but it gives you so many like vibes of what's going to happen in characters and moments and like places you're going to go, but doesn't really spoil anything because so many trailers these days. Like I feel like I saw once again a lot of the biggest moments in Elio from some of the trailers and stuff. And like I was like, "Yeah, Zootopia, good job, guys. That was nice. I
Yeah,
liked
just running through all the different
it.
lands,
Yeah, you
jumping
like
and
don't really
like
know what's happening, but you kind of get an idea of like what the adventure is going to be like. I was like, I like that. That's good
yeah,
stuff.
it was fun.
I'm sure the next trailer will ruin it, but for now, it's okay.
Gabby's Dollhouse is also going to be a
Oh
movie. I
yeah,
had
that's
no
random.
idea.
Yeah, I
Henry's like,
let
"That's
Liam just kind of
Gabby."
watch that a little bit like a few weeks ago, and I was like, I know about this
Yeah, she's like, That's Gabby's Dollhouse," and I was like, "I know nothing about this, but okay."
now. That's awesome. But anyway, that is Elio. That is the latest Pixar film, the 29th Pixar film. And now we must do the job of ranking this film. So we are at here at Talking Disney Magic. We rank and review all the biggest films in Disney and Pixar's catalog, and we rank them on a tier list of S, A, B, C, D, and F. As it stands, Lion King is leading the way at S, followed by Moana, Toy Story 3, Lilo and Stitch, Luca, Cinderella, Snow White, and Toy Story. At A, we have Toy Story 2, Bambi, Goofy, Elemental, Strange World, Saludos Amigos, and Encanto. At B, we have Onward, Soul, Raya, Turning Red, Lightyear, Inside Out 2, and Fantasia. At C, we have Moana 2, Wish, Lilo and Stitch live action remake, Dumbo, Pinocchio, Snow White live action remake, Melody Time, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Mufasa, and Fun and Fancy Free. And at D, all by their lonesome, but all together, The Three Caballeros. And so I now is the time where we must rank this film. And I think it's my turn to kick off this wonderful thing. And I talked about it a little bit um just a few minutes ago, but I do think this was kind of like a I don't think it's as bad, but I think this was kind of like a Mufasa for me, where I feel like the more we talked about it, the more I kind of liked it, and there was like a lot to love in this movie. Like I said before, like there's really some great messages in here. There's some great moments. There's some great exploration of tough topics, funny moments. I thought Glordon is hilarious. I don't know if he's quite a Hall of Famer, but at least like an honorary member, like an honorary shout out. I'll give him like a tip of the hat because he was really great.
Very cute.
And I think they did a lot of really kind of cool things with this and infusing like a real life thing like the golden record. I thought was such a cool like place to start it from and to build that story around it and to do all these things. And I really did enjoy a lot of this film. Once again, I still don't think it's the top of the top, but I feel like I don't know, I'm like near the top of the B or a low A, but I think if I had to kind of put it right now, and maybe I'll throw it over to you as a starting point. I'm gonna put it maybe ahead of Soul, behind Onward, in the B. But
Yeah.
I can kind of be. I'm curious to see where you kind of fall on it. But
So I was actually, as I was looking at the tier list, I have it on my phone.
nice.
Um, as I was pondering the universe over here, I kind of feel like it fits into our B category,
Yeah.
like just because of the other films, like thinking about these existential,
Right. Big
like
topics like
big
what?
topic movies that, like, all of them, Onward, Soul, Raya, Turning Red, Lightyear, Inside Out 2, not Fantasia, but everybody else. Fantasia is kind of its own thing, but
Yes.
everybody else in this category was tackling really big topics and was trying to think about, where do we belong and what does, belonging mean in this different context, literally every single one. So I think it fits in this belonging category.
B for belonging. I like it.
B for belonging. That's not quite an A because they didn't tackle them in a way that really felt
Right.
like, yeah, but B is for belonging, I think.
Yes.
Um,
Sounds right to me.
I like the ending better than I liked Onward's ending.
Yeah.
And so that to me puts it ahead of Onward. But I was like in the same boat, like right around Onward, Soul, Raya, in that kind of
That
area.
category.
Mm-hmm. Top of the beam, I think.
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, I think the reason I put it behind Onward is I don't think Onward had that scene, that S scene from like the fast food like restaurant that I don't think Elio quite had like a all-timer scene, which is why I
Mm.
kind of gave Onward the nod a little bit in my initial ranking, and like I think it fits there, and I think it could. I mean, I could go like back and forth, and I do agree. Kind of the ending. Once again, we had a whole thing about that and stuff, so that's kind of why I'm a little bit behind it. But yeah, I could kind of go either way too, I think. So
Yeah, I don't think there was an S scene in here. Definitely. And like in Soul, there wasn't one. There was a little bit of an S
that
scene in
barber
a
scene was
couple
pretty
places.
great. That was
Yeah.
that was
So
pretty
I'm
great.
almost like, okay, I could potentially put even behind Soul. Like, so I'm like I said, I'm kind of in this like in between. I think the ending, but it was abrupt.
I feel like
I think,
Soul's ending was kind of abrupt too a little bit, the way
yeah.
it kind of did that too. They're like these are all very like very similar. It's kind of hard to like put that there. I'm trying to think like I don't know, maybe yeah, I mean do we put it behind Soul just because it didn't have that like that one
S,
thing that we can
the
go
one
back to
thing that
because like Raya I feel I liked Raya a lot for the world building and for like some of the emotional moments I know didn't work quite as well for you but I still like I don't think there was like a moment but I felt just the emotion and the way they kind of built the world was cool and Soul and Onward like I said we had some problems with it but there were some like
S
I mean
moments.
like incredible S moments and I think Elio had some incredible S ideas and things that maybe just didn't quite get executed so well, but still did a great job. So
Yeah.
maybe
I feel like
behind Soul.
maybe behind Soul is a because I think then yeah, as a package, I think it's better than Raya.
Yeah.
But I think the S moments and the other two maybe make them a little bit higher if we're trying to figure out like
I know
why
it's
we
so
do what
hard
they
now.
do.
We're like so deep in this. It's like so tricky to be like, where exactly is this going to
It's
fit
gonna
in?
get
But
worse,
I
animals.
know it's definitely going to get worse. But yeah, I don't know. That kind of feels
That
right
feels
for me,
right.
maybe.
That feels right.
Because like yeah, thinking back on them, I'm like, yeah, what is that special sauce, that special thing? And Elio had a lot of really good stuff, but yeah, maybe not an all-timer scene. But yeah, okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're in agreement, I think.
Yep.
Okay, well there we go. So Elio is the newest entrant to the B category. So as it stands, B goes Onward, Soul, Elio, Ryan the Last Dragon, Turning Red, Lightyear, Inside Out 2, and Fantasia. And that, my friends, is the end of our Elio deep dive and ranking and reviewing. And whew, I feel like that was a long one.
It was. I feel like Fantasia might be the one that gets the boot for our whatever anniversary because it doesn't belong in B with belonging anymore.
Oh my God. I still love parts of Fantasia. I know you had some issues with it,
Yeah, but
but
it doesn't fit
the
in our B
themes.
for belonging.
That's fair. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
It doesn't belong
Oh my
there.
gosh. That's funny. But yeah, that's
The
yeah.
next one on my hit list.
Your time is no, your time is short, Fantasia. But get ready. Oh my God, that's awesome. I love it. I love it.
All these, yeah.
So yeah, make sure to stay tuned for that bloodbath of an episode.
It's- I feel like we should each get like three picks or something because then we could really do some
Oh my
damage.
God, that would be crazy. I'm like that gives me like a heartburn just thinking about it. But
Pin
luckily we
you
don't.
down.
Yes, I know. But luckily, we don't have to do that today. Today,
Not
all we
today.
have to do is say goodbye to everyone. But before we do that, we want to remind you that Talking Disney Magic goes live every Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But you get a lot of bonus episodes and instant reactions and reviews. Like we're on top of it. We're doing this thing. We've been doing it for it's really I'm proud of us, Vanessa.
We are doing it for
And,
sure.
and so there's a lot of fun stuff coming up. Like I said, next week we're going to be wrapping up Toy Story month. We're going to be ranking and reviewing Toy Story 4, as well as interviewing Danielle Kelly, the Dapper Danielle, about her brand new book, I Love Disney's Magic Kingdom, an unofficial fan guide. So if you have questions about anything for the Dapper Danielle, for Danielle Kelly, about the book, writing a book, anything about Magic Kingdom or Disney World, send them in. If you have thoughts on Toy Story 4, on any of the Toy Story films, or where you think Toy Story should go in the future, send it all in to talkingdisneymagic@gmail.com. Once again, talkingdisneymagic@gmail.com. And once again, check the show notes below for timestamps, our current ranking and rankings of all the films, our upcoming schedule, an invite to our Discord, and anything else you need to know in the world of Talking Disney Magic. But with that being said, Vanessa, thank you so much for spending the time with me and talking about this wonderful film that I feel like I grew a little more appreciation for it as we talk, which is why I love doing this show. It like really lets you experience it. I mean, going into a movie and seeing it 2 hours and doing it is one thing, but being able to dive deep on it, it's like it's a special thing. I really enjoyed this talk.
Yeah, no, I think this one in particular, I feel like sometimes the more we talk, the more we don't like it, or the more we find things that are wrong with it. And in this one, I think that we found that there was a lot of opportunity, a lot of things that they really were trying to tackle these issues and they were trying to be really thoughtful about it. And again, it wasn't preachy and it wasn't in your face and it didn't feel inauthentic. It just, I think, was a really big topic.
Yeah.
And maybe they like some of the things could have shown more if like they had just made a couple different choices.
Yeah. But overall, a really great one. Very little bad to say about it. It's
Yeah,
just really, really great effort, and I really recommend people go to see it because it's a good one. It's definitely a good one.
agree.
And on that note, I just want to thank you all as well for listening, for being a part of this community. For if you haven't yet, we'd love it if you would rank and review the show if you like this, if you'd share it with a friend and mean the world because it really does help more people find us and grow this community we're trying to build here. And it really is just it's a very special thing, and we're very proud of it. And we're excited to keep going. And we have a lot of fun in the future, and we hope you'll come along on the ride. But until then, we hope you have a great day and or night and a magical week. And we will see you for Toy Story 4 in our interview with the dapper Danielle. Bye, everybody.